speaking of the naughty, we've got, and speaking of the naughty women, we've got Shamima Begum. Hey, people, Shamima Begum. So what are our thoughts on Shamima Begum wanting to come back to the... Now she's sitting in some camp. I want to go back. Yeah, I want to go back to the UK. So, and the news has come in just today. Breaking news. Taza tareen khabar. That the UK have revoked her citizenship. The UK are like, ja, bhaad mein ja, mar. They're like, you can do one, in other words. So she's been left to stranded people. So what are our thoughts on this? So personally, I think, wait, drink. Zara sa drink to banta hai. Alright. So I think my thoughts are exactly the same. Bhaar mein jaye. She can go to hell, as far as I'm concerned, right? She is a joke, right? Absolute joke, people. No remorse, no kind of like regret. She's gone off to join vicious butchers. And in her I'll come to her interview, but I want to remind people something. You know, some people are seeing a picture of like a Muslim girl and they are identifying. So they're thinking like, like that could be, you know, like let's say, you know, women folk around you, girls around you, Muslim girls. I'm making it sound like there's some kind of harem over here, like, of Muslim girls. No, but I mean generally, the girls around you that you may personally know, and you're identifying, whether it's the guys or some of the girls are personally identifying, and they're thinking, well, she was young and she went and she got groomed. And I want to just stop people right there. Pause, press the pause button. And I would say, nah, munna, nah. This good for nothing. She is somebody, first, to make this very clear, she openly betrayed Allah and His Messenger. She has insulted them, insulted God and His Messenger, by going to kill primarily Muslims. They went over there to butcher Muslims. Because according to them, the vast majority of the Muslims are all kafirs. They were all hypocrites. According to them, we were all kafirs. Right? And we just happened to be in a different geopolitical, position. If we were over there, they would have unquestionably beheaded us. There's no two ways about that. By the time she went there, beheadings had already taken place. The propaganda was out there. The beheadings began in, I think, 2014. Right? And the ISIS propaganda, she was well aware of what she was doing. And under her, while she was there, she says, I saw a head cut off, thrown in a bin. I saw, my husband would tell me about executions taking place on a daily basis. This is loss of life, people. People are being massacred whilst they relish in this stupid fantasy of some kind of caliphate that they're setting up on the blood and skulls of innocent victims. Beginning, the first thing they executed is the honor of Islam. They threw God and His Messenger under the bus to begin with. These people deserve zero compassion, right, from any faith perspective. If there's a legal argument, that's separate. That's a legal argument for could have she returned or not. But as far as a faith perspective is concerned, these people were content, they relished, they were happy, they took delight in the murder and butcher butchering of innocent people, many of whom, most of whom were Muslims. So have no compassion from that perspective about these people. They knew very well what they were doing. I'm glad she has not come back to this country, because I mean, first of all, then there was the legal argument. Okay, so that's just a religious thing I want to clear up. Right, so somebody said, look, let me get this right. They don't deserve mercy because they betrayed the religion. No, look, mercy from God, tige, let them have mercy from God. I'm not stopping. Who am I to stop God? I can't stop the mercy of God. But should we show them mercy? No. These people, if the tables were turned, when the tables were turned, were butchering. They were butchering, killing, beheading, executing, destroying this deen. We have, as far as a faith perspective, we have no compassion. We do not go out of our way. I'm not saying execute her, or I'm against capital punishment. I'm not saying execute her. But, so I'm not saying to do harm to her like that. She has already met her own fate. She went there in hope of some ridiculous satanic concept of some global dominion that they will establish in the name of some caliphate. And they've met their fate. This is it. This was their fate. I mean, she's in a refugee camp. Cool, she chose it. You know, God never picked her up and threw her in some refugee camp. She got up and went there. So why should people pay for her to come back? Why? Why should other Muslims be victimized because of her? If she came back, I tell you what would have happened is it would have empowered the far right to say, so we haven't got money for our kids and this and this and this, but we've got money for extremist terrorists to feed and clothe them. If she came back, the backlash on every common Muslim would have been an actual reality. It's not something like, it would have been. The situation in the UK is tense. Brexit is a mess. The government here shouldn't be trying to bring back terrorists into this country. What the hell for? She is first and foremost our enemy. Right? She's the type of person, she and anybody of her ilk that went over there to kill innocent people. These people, if dehydrated, do not deserve to be urinated on. I'm telling you, these people deserve no. They first and foremost are the enemies of God and His Messenger. So from a religious perspective, we do not do them no favors. That's as far. I'm not saying you persecute them now, like I'm not saying bomb her or shoot her or anything, but I'm saying let her be where she is. She's in some camp. Let her stay there. That's her choice. She can do whatever she wants now. I hope she's found what she went for. And this is exactly what Allah warned them in the Quran. That they will find what they've gone seeking. And this is their, how do they feel now? That, some ridiculous concept that we're going to take over the world and mil gaya. It's like, this is so... So have no compassion. Do not argue her cause. That's what I would say. Yes, there was a slight legal argument. I acknowledge that. There was a legal argument in the sense that there was the argument that she was under 18 when she left. So, because of naivety and because of being... Was she groomed or not? Or groomed isn't the right word, but did she have advantage taken of her and she wasn't a full adult? So there was some legal argument, and I acknowledge that as a legal argument, not as a religious kind of compassionate argument, but as a legal argument. But then, in contrast with that, look at her attitude now. Her attitude was one of no regret. She said, on TV, she said, I don't regret joining ISIS. And look at what she said. She said, why does Mr. Sajid Javid think that I am a threat? I don't have any weapons. And check this out. She said, and even if I do have weapons, that was her words. She said, and even if I had weapons, why would I use them? Because you're a goddamn member of ISIS, you thick. you thick good for nothing. What do you mean, why would you use them? Because you're ISIS. You know, then they say, Mufti swears. Of course you're gonna, what do you mean, why would I use them? You'd use them because you're a nutcase terrorist. What else? And so, yes, there was a little legal argument, and she could have been brought back, and I accept this legal argument, and as soon as she came back, she would have spent her life in jail. There was that legal argument, but then, to be fair, the government would have had to pay for her, bring her here, pay for her living, pay for her cost of accommodation in prison, pay for her supervision, her medical costs they would have had to pay for. And this would have then evoked a kind of a backlash from the far right and the kind of disenfranchised people of the British public. So the general maslaha, I think, overruled that one tiny maslaha of the legal argument. So I agree with what the government, the decision they've taken. I think, hell yeah, right? You know, it's like, oh look, ask Baghdadi, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, ask him for some help. Right, so she was groomed by ISIS. She wasn't groomed by ISIS, man. She knew exactly what she was doing. You know what, I don't buy into this. The propaganda was out there. They were beheading people. They were doing things. She knew that. I wonder where her friends are, by the way. They haven't asked her where, because there were 3 of the girls that left. So what is Mufti talking about right now? I'm talking about Shamima Begum. Right. Right, views on Wahdatul. Okay, so I think that's her covered, right? So we have a decision. She's declared stateless. But you know what? In a way, the irony is that these extremists don't believe in the concept of nation states. So her being declared stateless, it kind of correlates with her beliefs. And this is why I condemn any of these extremist groups that don't go that full way, but they lend some legitimacy to these people. Groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, these kind of groups that are against states and speak of global dominion and we need a global caliphate and things like this, you have to be very wary, because these groups are like the grooming process for that. So, you know, you get onto these groups, you start having a hatred for people, you think that no nation state is legitimate in the world, all law is illegitimate in the world, we live in the land of war. You see, and then you're just a step away. The next step is, well, since we live in Dar al-Harb, naturally these are enemy combatants, these are harbiyun, and therefore we are at war with them. So this is why I have no sympathy for groups like that either. And if any of your family members are influenced by them, I would advise you to really do your best to kind of salvage the situation, to kind of bring, especially the younger people, bring them back from this kind of a concept. Don't let them get... And I've said this whole thing about Khilafah is honestly, it's a myth, okay? There's no such thing as Khilafah, and I've mentioned that even this word Khilafah that comes in all these hadiths is made up afterwards, because the word Khilafah in the time of the Arabs wasn't used with this concept. It wasn't used to mean rulership. So how could the Prophet be using this word in a hadith when the word didn't mean that in his time? Khilafah just meant something that came after. It didn't mean in any kind of, you know, like this vicegerent or deputy role, or this is a political understanding that emerges in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. So in the Prophet's time, it didn't even exist. So how could the Prophet be speaking about it to a people who wouldn't understand it? So this is a very important question, that this concept couldn't have existed in his time. The Prophet couldn't have used that word. The Arabs knew kings, they had muluk, they had the term wulat, walis, they had the term umara, they had the terms naqib and nuqaba, they had these kind of terms, but they never had this term of khalifa and khulafa. This is a post-Islamic part of the culture. As Islamic kingdoms emerged, they came up with these words. So the Prophet couldn't have been speaking like that. That's like if you get, you know, if we get something from, I don't know, you're reading up something by, you could be reading anything, something by Abraham Lincoln speaking about mobile phones. If he's using the word mobile, he can't be using mobile to mean mobile phone, because mobile phones don't exist in his time. So nobody would understand what he's on about. So the Prophet can't be using the word khilafah to mean that. So that means he never used these words. So either this hadith, or these hadith that you have on khilafah, are either people reinterpreting them and putting them in, or they're entirely made up just to serve the kings of the early. Like the hadith in Bukhari, there will be 12 khulafa after me. 12 of Bani Umayyah. Yeah, right. And this is ridiculous. This hadith cannot exist because the Prophet couldn't be speaking like that. Because then the companions, even when they came up with the word Khalifa for Abu Bakr, they came up with it. They didn't even know. They said, how about we use the word Khalifa? If the Prophet had been teaching them, they ought to say, yes, the Prophet has already told us about this. We will be using the words he taught us. He taught us the word Khalifa, we will be using the word Khalifa. They actually used different words first. They said Amir, then they said, how about we call you Khalifa? So this is all a made up myth, and it's done to kind of give Muslims today some kind of false nostalgia and false hope that the reason we're suffering is because we haven't got a caliphate. If we had a caliphate, everything would be rosy and, you know, it'd be dandy and everything would be brilliant.